Yeah.
It's no fun to come out with
No,
that around my waist. I'm like, one of those weekends I just stay.
What shoulder do you have?
Yeah, 4 treats, so end of June,
Okay,
if everything stays on track, if
Yeah.
I can go every 2 weeks, so.
that's good.
Yeah, if the blood numbers aren't good, then I have to push it out, so it might go into July, but I only have 4 left, I'm 2/3 of the way done, I had
Good.
12 total, so.
Oh, wow.
We're
okay.
on the downhill
Oh,
slide.
yeah, you're on the home stretch.
Yeah,
That's great.
last weekend was the 5th, yeah, so I have 4 left. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so yeah, definitely on the downhill slide,
It's good.
yes, thank God. Starting to crack mentally, I'm like, I don't wanna do this anymore. But I only have 4 more left, so. I think I can
Do
get
you
through it.
rate yourself when you're done with that? Do you have like?
Oh, yeah, the problem is that because it's been pushed a couple of times, I can't really like plan something specifically, but yes, I will be.
No, I mean like after each treatment.
Oh, after treatment, no, not really, I'm just trying to feel better, so, yeah, not really, so. But. So, just a long weekend on those weekends,
Yeah.
and I usually don't feel good for a couple days, and then by Wednesday, which was yesterday, I was starting to feel better, so. I started to feel better that one.
Right. There.
Here, so I'm gonna have you do it without the live presenting, because it didn't work last time, so we're gonna try something else.
Oh, okay. Are we going?
Okay,
See, I needed to get here early to get.
I got all ready.
Hello.
Got my arms all set.
Nice.
Yeah, all right,
Here
here we are, hello.
Gentlemen.
Yeah, they were here 2 days ago.
Yeah, we had our
Yeah.
budget and finance committee meeting.
He's got a busy month. He's gonna hit the magic
The
number of
max.
5. He's gonna hit
Five
5,
meetings
he's
this
gonna hit 5 meetings this month.
Which other committee are you on?
Well, he's got the budget committee and you guys have 2 meetings.
2 meetings.
He's got the liaison committee meeting on Tuesday,
Oh,
so
okay.
that's 3, and then we have 2 board meetings, so he's gonna
Yeah.
hit the magic number of 5.
Are we gonna? On the 16th, we have ethics.
With ethics, yeah.
We're not gonna
We
make it a
had
special
talked
meeting.
about it.
No, it's a special meeting, yeah.
Oh, it
It
is.
is, but you can only get 5 max, so he's
No,
gonna,
I know.
yeah.
But.
Mhm.
yes,
well,
so he's gonna hit the max
And
plus.
there's no carryover.
You're gonna hit the max plus. Yeah, I really tried it. It was funny because I started looking at that. I'm like, oh, because I really tried not to make you do more than 5.
Mhm.
And but it just didn't work out with the budget committee and liaison, and I'm like, try not to.
I'm used to doing a lot of work, so.
I know.
Yeah, and I did check the, things are direct deposited.
Okay.
So, yeah, I wasn't
Excellent.
seeing it before,
Yeah.
but it's just
Yeah, when you
going
go look at it,
automatic.
Excellent. Perfect. Yeah, it goes, yeah, we do it on the pay period that ends on the 15th.
Yeah.
I do it for the previous month, so. Oh, wanna tell them to come to this door?
They've all probably never been to a.
I know. The first round.
Is this like go over?
Oh, yeah,
It's not go over?
You have to like lift it.
Feels too far away.
It's all down.
Vanna White.
Okay, so what do I do different this time?
So instead of, you're gonna do the same thing, but instead of hitting, presentation, you're just gonna. You're just gonna. What are you gonna?
Right outside the door. Yeah.
Well,
So.
Oh, I'm not gonna be in the.
You can,
You're not kind of jammed in the doorway.
like pickling almost, I guess,
Thank you.
but I figured, yeah. Eat what we can
Yeah.
and give away the rest.
Go to live meeting. We did most of it.
You're getting,
And I think last time we did representing, but yeah.
Yeah.
Here, I know, yeah, but it didn't let me,
Yeah.
it didn't let me do a start time, and so, yeah, it didn't take, so I don't know if at the bottom when you're done, it's saved. Maybe it'll be, we need to make sure, yeah, I know, but we just need to make sure it saves.
Okay.
At the end, yeah.
Okay.
Just don't-
What
just don't get out
about
of it.
like when there's,
The resolution.
multiple
the
things,
commission.
like keep it going?
Yeah, just keep it all, yeah, that started whatever.
Yeah.
We have to roll it out.
I mean,
So, wherever you wanna be. I have.
Wherever you wanna be, hi Jen,
Hi,
are you excited on your countdown?
I'm, no,
You don't know, I know,
yeah,
that's what I hear, that's what I hear of people who are in your position.
I know.
I have a number of years yet to
Yeah.
wait, it just seems so far away.
I know, you know, earlier in the year, I was like, woohoo, I can't wait, and now I'm like, I don't know, did I make a good decision? No, you have to forever. My husband Pat,
Hi Pat, I'm Michelle, nice to meet you.
and this is Jamie. Oh, this is my boyfriend. So, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, you can always come sub.
I know. Or I can just come play.
Or maybe just come play.
Yeah, I mean, I live close enough, I can walk over, hey, I'm just here to play.
Oh, fabulous.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay.
Okay, bro.
Today.
Oh, my God. She got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All of them.
Why the beginning?
She goes.
Straight next to it.
I
like, that's why.
Yeah.
So I will not leave until I
I
won't leave until
Yeah.
How you doing? We'll, yeah. Then you're gonna take off.
Were they both the last meeting?
Yeah, both. So I don't know.
I wash my hair without conditioner. I mean, I logged in.
Yeah, no, you do it, yeah, I mean, you should do the way it's supposed to do it, and, but usually, like, when I've done it before, like, just, I can put in the start time and then it all happens, but that, you wouldn't let me put in the start time and. Okay, so yeah, I just don't know.
We'll just take it.
Great.
Yeah.
So then, I was done with that. Definitely car. I did really that down there.
I couldn't do the, A1, they were all pulled out already. You know, cause I think that only becomes eligible 24 hours ahead of time. Well, I think that's why,
Oh.
you know.
Yes.
She was, I something, so she was happy.
When you zoom in.
We're all stressing about. How we're gonna get all of our Saturdays, all this stuff in my office, but because you think that like my desk and everything go inside my office. Well, like it will go right. Yeah. Yeah. Do it. We all have a ton of stuff, you know, the chamber people doing, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out this
You can be
way.
a floater already.
Well.
Hey, there were a whole bunch of empty boxes in this corner, I moved them into the other room, so if you can have sort of
Yeah, I don't know. if all
break them
people
down
need
and
it.
take care of them, that'd
We
be
have
great.
kind of.
I think they're from sports, but
lacrosse sort of-
I thought they had stuff in them, but I went over there. and oh, it's empty boxes. You know, who my
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
events or preschool or they're small.
Anna.
You'll
find it.
small.
Nothing ever gets thrown away. We have a bunch of empty boxes, cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
Can't.
Oh.
But Anna usually wants to.
Not right now.
No.
Anna did. I don't know.
Yes, yeah, these ones are small.
Or
they're-
when there's like. holiday.
Are you gonna need it? Are we moving out?
Oh, they're not really good boxes. They're from, they're like this.
No, we had
Yeah,
plans on that. T-shirt.
You know, I've heard so much about them.
Yeah.
Lance wrote press about.
We had, you know, a good time when we did that before, but I think it's hard, when we
Yeah,
did it
exactly.
previously during COVID, more people were at home.
Yeah.
Now people have like things that they do. you know, we-
Sort of was generated in the first place.
Yeah, yeah, it's all.
I thought
kind of-
this was like 20 years ago.
No, it just was something that we could do.
I know, it gets full, there's lots of things going on.
Engage, but not necessarily in groups, you know.
What the?
I have trouble getting people too. so they-
Rick Fire, yeah.
I mean, there's people that were.
Well,
A lot of people had various.
You came out,
groups.
that very,
So, yeah.
very meeting today, because in the presentation, it's the picture of you with your beard and your hair. So,
Yes.
so it's,
I'm trying to think, it's all there, that's the same around.
yeah.
Is it the same?
Yeah, I'm gonna turn the recorder. Just so I don't forget. Yeah, it does take a while to use. No, no, okay, that's why I don't want you to not do that. I never have, yeah, I just wanna make sure, I thought we did. I'm trying to figure out what one. Yeah.
There, someday.
I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Pleasant Hill Rec and Park District Board of Directors for Thursday, May 9th. Looking around, all directors are present. So we'll go on to item 2, the Pledge of Allegiance, and Director Glover, will you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number of people in our gallery today, that's great. Okay. The next item is public comment, and this is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on any item that is, or any topic that is not on our agenda. Do we have any public comment tonight?
No, we do not have any public comment.
Then I'll close public comment and bring it back to item 4, to reports and presentation. And the first item is proclamation honoring Jan Ertola for 16 years of service.
So it is my honor and pleasure to have Jan here this evening, so that the board and staff can honor her in a public meeting for her 16 years of exceptional service, not just service, but exceptional service. Jan has been a shining light in our preschools for 16 years, but you know, she has endured a lot of changes in education and, you know, was one of our warriors during COVID. And, you know, really, you know, she's always been kind of one of the pillars in our preschool program for the last 16 years. So I know that I know Stephanie and other people are going to really miss Jan. But we're very excited for Jan and her opportunities in the future. But we do appreciate all of your hard work. And I'm gonna turn this over to Sarah first, and then Chair Vincent has a proclamation to read. So go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, I don't know where you want me to be.
Over here.
Okay. Oh,
And that's the guest seat.
so formal. Well, I won't get on my soapbox too long, but I just want to say that I absolutely adore Jan Ertola. I call her Mary Poppins, a little bit of sunshine, and it has been a complete honor and privilege to work with her for my last 10 years. She is one of our remaining staff from when I first started, that I would have hired if I had to, and I'm glad that she was here. And she took our Tiny Tot program, which started out as kinder care, moved into Tiny Tot, became Bumblebees. Was like 2 days a week, we went 3 days a week. They said it couldn't be done, we went 4 days a week, then we went 5 days a week. It just kept growing. And so for those who don't know, Tiny Tot is our toddler class, and it used to be 12 months to 24 months. And we kind of bumped it up because they weren't really walking so great. So we bumped it up to 1.5 to 2.5-year-olds. But it's a lot of families' first child, the child's first time ever detaching from mom and dad. They're babies and they cry and they're sad, and
Jan just swoops him up in her loving arms and shows him all the wonderful things that are going on that day, and just makes magic happen. And also partners with parents and, you know, helps guide them as, you know, this is their first time around too. And yes, through COVID, she became a YouTube star, singing songs, reading stories. I think your doggy made an appearance. Yeah. But yeah, she's never skipped a beat. She always comes in with a positive attitude, and just is a rock star teacher. So today I have the honor of presenting you with your diploma. Because you have finally officially graduated from preschool. So this is for you. Thank you.
You know, I'm only a phone call away.
Oh, I know.
And Jan, now, Chair Vincent has a proclamation.
All right, so yeah, I think I better do this without my glasses on. So in the matter of honoring Jan Urtola, the Pleasant Hill Recreation and Park District Board of Directors does find, whereas Jan's own children attended our preschool program, inspiring her to then become a preschool teacher. Whereas Jan was hired with the district in 2008 as a preschool teacher's assistant, then being promoted to lead teacher. And whereas Jan has embraced working with a very diverse preschool population, and whereas she has brought a happy, enthusiastic, and excited attitude to our program every single day. And whereas she would regularly seek out and attend workshops, online seminars, read books, and find tools to best serve our children with additional needs. And whereas Jan is a very kind, caring, and nurturing person, and she will be missed by her district family and all whom she has built friendships with, but we know she will enjoy her retirement spending more time with her family. Therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Directors and the staff of the Pleasant Hill Recreation and Park District hereby congratulate Jan Urtola for her 16 years of dedication and commitment to the district and to this community, proclaimed by the Board of Directors on May 9th, 2024. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
5 more years.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, good.
Before I let Jan speak, is there any staff who wanted to say anything here? I know.
I might cry, but.
Okay. Introduce yourself, please.
I'm Stephanie Carson, and I've had the pleasure of working with Jan side by side for the past 10 years of my employment with Pleasant Hill Rec, and she's taught me. She's taught me a lot, and we've learned together, and I don't think I'd be the teacher I am without her.
It's so good. Anybody, Jan, did you want to say something? Jump spot.
This is just a really wonderful place to work, and who else gets to go to work and play with children? I mean, it's a fabulous job. I mean, yes, it can be a little bit trying at times, and we've had some challenges, but overall, it's a wonderful job, and it's very rewarding when those challenges, we can overcome them and find ways to help the challenging children. But my first 6 years that I was here in the baby class over at the Winslow Center, it was more like babysitting until they moved me over to the community center, and then Stephanie came on board with me, and I don't even know how she dropped into my lap, because she's just like it's just like we don't even have to say, can you do that or can you do that? It's just like we just meshed and we just knew what had to be done and what we each other needed and we just clicked along perfectly. And she's saying that I helped her, but she helps me and she's awesome. She's gonna be just fine because she's a wonderful teacher. And it's really hard, that's really hard to leave behind, but I just feel like as much as I don't wanna leave, I just kind of feel like it's just kind of like time. So it's hard, it's a hard one because it is a wonderful job and I love the children and so that's really hard, but, and I love all you guys and it's gonna be hard, but I'll find something to do. I just need the grandchildren. I gotta get some daughter-in-law and son-in-law.
No pressure.
My children are very slow. So anyway, but I appreciate everything. Thanks so much.
Director Bernard.
Jan, I wasn't aware that until Chair Vincent read about your role in developing the program here, how indebted we are to you for the quality of the program that we have. That it's not just about, reading, writing, arithmetic, it's about values. It's about, really understanding what kids need at that particular age and stage. I'm very proud of our preschool programs and
Thank you. And we love.
sounds like you are, some of the inspiration for that, in fact, a lot of the inspiration for that. This woman knows who every backpack belongs to, every shoe belongs to, every diaper probably
And I
belongs
know where
to.
every toy belongs, that don't get our toys.
On behalf of all the children that you have, including my grandchildren, that you have loved and cherished, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Any other comments? Okay, well, thank you so much for your service.
Yes.
For your dedication. You will fully enjoy this next phase of your life. And
Thought you can always come back.
it's.
Yeah, I'm sure Sarah will welcome you with open arms.
Okay. But thank you very much and congratulations. Oh.
I just want to add one thing. I also started in 08 and our paths did not cross regularly because I was the park maintenance guy here at Pleasant Hill Park. But when I started, I just assumed you just always worked here.
Yeah.
Anyways, and I've crossed paths with you more in the last few years and it's just been great, but I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Wow, you're out, that's great.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You can all feel free to leave as well.
Oh, including a doctor.
You can stay, you can stay, but I don't want you to feel obligated,
Okay.
so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I do see you, Larry.
Yeah, Larry's here for the item that's coming up.
We'll get to you.
Thank you so much. Walking your big dog in my boots.
Thank you. That's always a nice way to start a meeting. Something is, so she's leaving, it's just the smiles and to hear everything that she's done and meant to the district. That's phenomenal. We will go on to item 4.2, report from our ex officio team council representative, Lila, and I understand she is.
Yes, unfortunately, Lila had a choir banquet, which is a graded event, so she
Yes.
could not skip it. But she did send a written report, so I'll go ahead and read that. Spring sports season is over. However, some teams still have NCS, which is their championship. Baseball and softball are headed to NCS, and so are some of the swim and track athletes. Tryouts for sideline cheer took place this week, and results were put out this morning. Over the summer, many of our sports are holding camps. I'm guessing Lila is probably paid the team, but she didn't say. Choir has their banquet this week, and they will announce Singer of the Year and other awards. So when Lila comes back, we'll have to see if she won any awards. Furthermore, they have their Pops concert on May 24th. Band is also preparing for their Pops concert, and it will be held in the Quad. Drama is finished with productions for the year. College Park Leadership is hosting Powder Puff, which is the girls' flag football game, and Spring Fling tomorrow. Well, this was yesterday. They apparently did. She said tomorrow night. She did this on Tuesday. Powder Puff has been practicing every day at lunch. We'll have the game from 4 to 5. Then Spring Fling will be held from 5 to 7:30. There's food, games, bands, and other fun booths. And it's also AP testing time, so they're having fun as they wrap up the year, and also AP testing for those who are in advanced placement classes. So that is from Lila.
Okay,
Hopefully she'll be able to join us at the next meeting.
yes, we hope to be able to see her. She's a junior now, right?
Yeah, she's a junior. She'll be here next year.
All right. All right, we will move on to item 4.3, report from the general manager, Michelle.
Great. So I included a written report, but I have a couple of highlights that aren't in the written report. First, I was told today by Lance Hurtado, our building and facilities management superintendent, that the carpet replacement for the Pereira Pavilion has been completed. So please take a look at that the next time you were there. The rest of the building will be done on August 18th. So that is when they can find the time, or August 19th, I'm sorry, 19th, right? But the Pereira Pavilion is, I was bummed when I was there today that I didn't go take a look at that. So, and then just a reminder that our 523 meeting is moved to 5:30 due to the CARPD conference. A number of you are attending that conference. So we're excited about that. Also a reminder that it's a busy month. We have ethics training next Thursday with our general counsel, Osa Wolf, here in this room at 6 p.m. Blues and Brews, we're gearing up and looking for sponsors and vendors. The staff came up with these cute little cards that they're passing out. One side has food and craft vendors with a QR code, and the other one has sponsorships available. So I'm going to pass these around. Take any you'd like to pass out.
And who are those used for?
So these are for Blues
For
and Brews, yeah, for vendors and sponsors and potential sponsors. So there's a QR code. But it's nice because they can hand it out and it's not a flyer, and people can go to that, and they can just stick it in a pocket and not, so they'll be handing some of these out, during the art wine and music festival, as well as they're, hunting for vendors, food and craft vendors, as well as sponsors. So I'm excited about that. I wanted to shout out to our aquatic staff who are implementing California Assembly Bill 506, which is a new state law that expands fingerprinting for all volunteers who are in youth organizations. Before, it used to just be coaches. So the staff found a mobile unit to come out, so we didn't have to send everybody individually to UPS store, which is great, because that is, always a difficult thing. So I wanted to shout out to that staff because they've done a nice job with that, and taking that seriously and implementing that, those regulations. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Dr. Bernard.
Is there a distinction between Dolphins and PHBA and the soccer league?
Yeah.
There is a distinction, so I know that PHBA does fingerprint and background checks on their coaches, but is this expanding to them as well?
But it doesn't carry over, you have to do it, so I've done it for PHMSA, I did it for PHBA, and now I'm scheduled to do it for Dolphins.
But to answer your question, yes, it expands to any adult volunteer that would have contact with youth. And so that includes snack bar, and so it's basically to make people aware that all of us are responsible for the children, and and that people may have different interactions with children through the youth sports. It's not just coaches at all, or umpires. It's also those who work the snack bar and all of those sort of things. So
That's awesome.
yeah, so that is state law. Any questions?
Secretary Wurst.
Yeah, I had a question. How's the lifeguard hiring going? Is there still
It's
a
going.
need, or, okay, cause I
I
know in years past it's been difficult to, get people, but.
they have a pretty big crop coming in here this month. So and so I think we're done hiring.
Yeah, we have a good mix of new lifeguards and then returning, and some of our college kids who have been away all school year long are starting to come back now, which is great because we run a little lean for certain months of the year. But We're looking okay staffing wise.
Any other questions? Any comments from the board? If not, we'll move on. Right, on to item 5, consent calendar. We have 2 items on the consent calendar, our bills to be paid and adopting the resolution for declaring May as National Water Safety Month. Does anyone want to move
Oh,
the
consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous decision. Thank you. There. And we will move on to item 6, action items. First one is our discussion regarding tax rate projects and timing of potential bond election. I'm going to turn it over to General Manager Lacy.
Great, thank you, Chair Vincent, members of the board. Larry Trematola is here this evening via Zoom. He is in Denver, so it's a couple of hours later for him right now. So I appreciate Larry being here. At our last meeting, we had a conversation about tax rates. At that time, our discussion was limited to that because the agenda title was such that it was only limited to that. This is an opportunity for the board to weigh in and ask questions and provide some direction to staff and our consultant team on anything regarding the bond. I've made it broad enough that we can have that conversation. So at the last meeting, you requested some updates on the tax rate, so that is included. We can answer questions on that. We've included the projects that were included that Larry is recommending, kind of the areas that were getting enough support to meet our 66.6% threshold. And those are the highest level of support. And it's not an exhaustive list of projects, but it's kind of the projects that fit into some of those categories. Larry can talk a little bit about, we haven't identified buckets of money, because we obviously don't have tax rate. We don't know what it is, how much we're anticipating getting. So we haven't really done that, but I could answer some of those questions. And the biggest question tonight, really, before the board, we've been moving forward with the anticipation of trying to move forward on an August special election. There were a number of reasons the board wanted to do that. Well, since that time, that we've been kind of diligently at staff level moving towards that goal, we've received information from the county elections office that the cost of that is going to be at least about around $250,000 based on the per vote estimate and the number of registered voters that we have. So at this time, I think the board should have a discussion, and Larry's here to have a discussion about, final decision on timing. The November election is what staff and our consultants are recommending for a couple of reasons. One, we're already have an election at that point in time, so we're going to pay our share at that point in time as long as we have a contested election. It is much cheaper to do that at that point in time because we share it with everybody who was involved in that election. So it's a presidential election. It's city council seats are up, and so it's being a general election. Our cost will be much less. So from a staffing, from my standpoint, spending $250,000 to hold a special election that we're going to need to get over that 66.6% threshold. When we could use that $250,000 to do a project seems counterintuitive. Recently, the San Ramon Valley Unified School District is having a conversation with John Isom. San Ramon Valley Unified School District just did a special election. They lost. Both parcel taxes lost. They needed the 66.6%. And some of the comments were that it cost too much, the election cost too much. for them to put, that people didn't feel that it was a good use of resources. That the school district did not wait until the general election. There was editorials on that as well, and so I think we need to be mindful, since we have a tax sensitivity and really a spending sensitivity. We need to be wise with our dollars, and so staff is recommending that we wait until November. But we can have that robust conversation, and Larry is here. So Larry, did you want to say anything in addition to what I said?
Well, I think you covered it very well. Anytime you're in a planning on an election, there's critical points that may lead to success or failure. And I think that you also want to make decisions that are really in the best interest of the district. We thought early on that August would be a great opportunity, partly because the people that participate in that are probably the people most likely to understand the needs, have perhaps an incentive to support this, but the cost just seemed out of whack, to be honest with you. And I agreed with Michelle and her staff's kind of recommendation that it was too big of a cost for us to go in August. Now, you balance that. Our polling firm always felt that November was a better option anyway, just in terms of who's going to participate in that. But there's pluses and minuses. It means that we're going to have to reach out to a lot more people in November for the November election than we would have for August. And the cost of campaigning could be higher in November than August because you're having to communicate to more people. So there's give and takes and all of that. But I think it's the right decision. I don't think it changes our strategy that we begin over the summer in terms of reaching out and talking to people and getting them to understand the needs, which is a continuation of work that we've been doing for a while. I would also add that since the last board meeting when John Eisen was there, we've talked a lot about the median household, what they would pay, and the various calculations now. A tax rate of around $18 or $18 would generate a little over 71 million for the district if that were to pass. And the average cost per homeowner, now it varies obviously based on people's assessed valuation, but the average would be about $89 a year, which is about a little over $9 a month. We're in the range of quite less than what the successful bond was, but I think in a range that Tim, our polling firm, believes it's doable. So good news and in terms of having more time, but the strategies change a little bit. But I think all in all, I think we are continually laying a solid foundation for this. And I think that the combination of quality polling, quality community outreach is serving us well. So that's the only thing I would add to Michelle's remarks, but I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Do we have any questions at this point from the board? Director Glover.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a first question I would have is that, this is an action item. And the way I took it is, it seems to me the only action component of this is whether or not to go forward in August or to defer to November.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it would seem to me that if that might be a question, more of a comment. If that may be the real item. To me, if the decision is to go to November, the other issues aren't necessarily needed to be vetted out tonight. But so that being said, when I read the staff report, it was the reason for going from August to November was cost, and then you said cost, and then you said cost, and so it begs the question, And I know that you mentioned that the polling, I remember the pollster when he came in initially said that November would be better. But if cost, maybe, this is gonna be a two-part question. One, the first question is, what was the cost when we ran Measure E in 2009? And was that inflationary wise respective to where we're at now? Because in my recollection, it is. And so, and I don't remember any pushback at that time in 2009 about the cost of an election being an issue. That being said, I don't, so if money were no object, would this, and Larry, this would be quite on through the chair to Larry, would be, if the 250 wasn't a concern, would the recommendation be that we go forward in August instead of November?
His picture's behind you if you want to, if that helps.
You don't have to
Oh,
look
I
at-
was
yeah.
looking at him.
Yeah. I can see him here. Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
I do not have an answer to your first question. All I know is that over the last 10 to 15 years, county government has figured out a way to cover their costs by increasing fees to other governmental agencies. And that we've seen that. My guess would be that when it was in 2009, it was a modest cost. It was not in $250,000. But I mean, we could go back and look at that, but that's my guess. In terms of the other question, that's a really good question. And I think my answer candidly to you would be, I would go for August. If money was not an object, but it is. And it is for two reasons. One is practical and what you would do with that money if you weren't spending it on an election. And the other is a political cost. And you saw that, and Michelle referred to that in San Ramon, where it became an issue of waste. You're asking me to tax myself, and you could go at a different time, but you're doing it now. And that's you don't know whether it's going to be raised in this campaign. It may not be in this particular district, but it could be. I think we have, in terms of your preparation and the study of your facilities, mitigated most of the major arguments. This is one that if we went with that, we would have a difficult time mitigating that. So if money wasn't an object, but it is, then I'd love to see it in August, because I think it gives us an ability to communicate with virtually every single person, which November, it's a lot harder.
I need to think in terms of the feasibility in November of having to reach so many more people. The campaign would be so much more expensive. It sounds as if there's some belief that that would be the case. Is it likely that that increased expense would go beyond our ability to fund it?
Well, the district would be funding
I'm talking
that.
about the
Yeah,
election.
Yeah.
I'm talking about our ability,
You mean the campaign funding?
the campaign
Yeah.
funding.
So the district wouldn't participate in any
Correct.
campaign
No.
funding. So, we definitely are most likely going to need more funds, as Larry pointed out. But we also are going to get, when you looked at the two dates, and as Tim said in, our polling, we're going to get more yeses automatically because of the number of voters that are coming out. So, so the delta is a little less by a couple of percentage points. If I remember, Larry, it was a couple percentage points.
Right.
That we have a more favorable electorate coming out in November to automatically say yes at this point in time.
Is there another general election in the following March, or not until?
Yes.
Yes, there is.
I don't believe there's a general in March.
But we could go in March, or we could go in
Summer
in
Journal.
June. So there's other possibilities. And the other factor, and I don't think it's a huge one because we have no idea how it's going to turn out, but the measure to allow the passage of these measures at 50% plus one is also going to be on the ballot in November. And if we if we did not get the 2/3 in November and we got over 50% plus one, we would be, and that measure passed, we'd be grandfathered in. So, but those are all things kind of out of our control. What's in our control is the ability to communicate to people. And we developed a strategy that to communicate with people who were not likely to vote in a August election, but would likely, if we communicated with them, vote if we could encourage them to vote. They'd vote in favor, we could encouraging them. I don't think our strategy changes at all, whether it's August or November, in terms of reaching out to those people, because we need to. And as we know, there's certain people that are going to vote yes no matter what, and there's certain people that are going to vote no no matter what. The sweet spot is the people in the middle that we need to reach out and talk to. Either they're not concerned about the district or don't think about it, or they may have questions that need to be answered before they're going to vote yes. But that's what our work needs to be from now all the way to whenever we have the election.
So we really don't know about the feasibility of the fundraising and whether that would
No, we haven't.
influence.
Yeah,
our
I mean, the
decision.
campaign fundraising hasn't started. I've received a number of comments from people that until the board puts something on a ballot, raising funds for a campaign, they're not willing to step forward at this time. Yeah, so it's kind of a big unknown.
Okay.
And so, but so that's kind of where we're at this point in time. So,
So if we were
And I
given,
agree with your analysis that really the only thing we need to, we don't need to ask questions about,
Right.
can 71 million
Unless-
cover these things and all that? kind of
unless
stuff.
you would like to go in,
I don't think we're ready
August
to.
and go in August, then yes, but yeah.
I think that, so,
Well,
go ahead, Linda.
No, no, no.
I want you to go ahead.
It wasn't a question, it was a comment.
That's okay.
I can say, it.
No, go ahead, I want you to go ahead.
I think we're ready. I just wanted to clear that up. I think we're more than ready to go. I think it's just a question of, I'm not hearing that we're not ready to go, it's just a question of the cost, which I think is a very legitimate question. But make no bones about it, I think that based on the work that we've done as a district to get to this point, we're ready to go.
I agree with you if we were gonna go in August that we're ready. Excuse me. My concern now, if we're, and I'm not prepared to pay $250,000 for the election in August. I think that's an outrageous amount. I think the public would not respond well to that. And based on what's happening in San Ramon, I think that would bear out. I think if you said, well, it's gonna cost us $250,000 to do this special election, but we're gonna get this. And I suppose we could make an argument that said, but it's probably gonna be, we would spend more if we're gonna do something in November because we have to do things a little bit different. I'm not so sure that the delta between whatever increase we might spend doing a November election versus the 250 is enough to go ahead and, go for August. I would love to, but that number just, to me, blew it away. That's just my opinion. The other thing is, if we were doing August, we'd be out there starting now, and there already has been some activity as far as talking to people. But if we're not doing August, then if we do something now, are people going to understand it and retain that information for November? Or do we start in August for November? I don't know. That's just a question I have.
Well,
Larry.
let me jump in on that one, because I think you know, when you look at the resources that any organization has to put in, you have the resources of money, which we talked about, you have the resources of time, and you have the resources of people. Time is a resource most easily wasted. And I believe we need to start now, whether we're going in August or going in November. I really do. And because we need people to be able to communicate the message, and it takes a while for people to get moving and doing things. So, you know, we will figure out how to run a great campaign with whatever money we raise. And if we have the volunteers and if we have time to communicate to people, I believe we'll be successful. And that's what we're trying to test right now.
Any other comments or questions of Larry?
I have a question.
Secretary Worst.
Was Measure A campaign fundraising, was that around 80K? That was raised?
That one.
No.
That one.
80K. How much did you raise?
80,000 for
How much did
Measure
we
A?
raise in Measure A?
You'd have to have the measuring.
We'd have to find out from the Measure A committee, so.
Look at their,
Yeah.
Cause I'm just curious, you know, like, you know,
Yeah.
what
That
we
seems
need in
low.
terms of sponsorships, you know, for
It's too long
a
ago.
campaign.
Well, I mean, so I just need to be clear, the district isn't spending any money on the campaign.
Yeah.
No,
And so,
I-
yeah, so any campaign conversation, we have to have outside of the boardroom,
Well,
so.
the question
Yeah.
I'm looking for is that, you know, there's talk about costs and the costs incurred by the district.
Right.
But yet, you know, we anticipate there's gonna be additional costs for going in November because the campaigning will obviously reach out a greater number of people. And then we talk about the difference, the delta in terms of what we put out front to be able to, you know, pay for this in August, 250K. Is it just the community that's gonna then support that in terms of campaign costs for running the election in November?
Yeah, I mean, the
just
campaign
wanted
costs
to-
are coming from the community, they're coming from, they're coming from outside of the district, so the campaign, while I understand what Chair Vincent was saying, is that the delta needed for the campaign and the
It's
delta
probably
between
less.
is probably less.
And
But
Larry
the
said,
district will not be paying any of those funds, so the district funds is only the 250 for an August special election. That would be borne entirely by the district, not the campaign.
Right.
And then, the election costs for November, so the district will bear only that, so.
well, I think, you know, kind of a little bit to Bobby's initial point and question that this is just to decide really about the cost and not necessarily what, if we're ready to go. But the sponsorships won't happen until we are ready to go. I mean, I kind of feel like we've, you know, got an idea that, you know, we're gonna be looking to go early if we want to start sponsorships. So my question is, you know, if we're not looking to, you know, move forward with August, how soon can we make that decision to go for a bond measure?
We can make the decision to put it on the agenda at any point in time. The deadline we have is the middle of August. I would suggest we do that no earlier than July. So when the kind of election season opens, which is mid-July, for candidates is about probably the same time. But we could decide to put it on the November election right now. The problem you have is that as soon as you do that, the district cannot spend any more funds on any I mean, we can educate, but that's it. And so it makes it very, very murky. And I understand you keep asking about campaign, but we need to not, the campaign is outside of
I
this.
know.
And so, you know, but as soon as you, as a board, adopt a resolution to put it on the, to put it on a ballot, funding for the district, from the district on any promotional, any of that, it stops. So that, so my suggestion is that we wait as long as possible so that we don't inadvertently run into an FPPC violation in our efforts to educate people about our needs, which is what we're doing.
Yeah, and so we'll still have some additional costs incurred during these months leading up to the time in which you make a decision.
Mhm.
Not much, but I mean, we're playing for Larry and his time and. I have other comments, but.
Okay, well, we can, let's have questions and then we'll go to public. No, I want you to go ahead. Vice Chair Train.
Just maybe a simple question. Larry, what's the delta on the number of people we would have to reach in November? Because you said that for August, we can pretty much get all the middles, reach out to every one of the maybes. What's the difference in November? How many?
I knew this question was gonna come up when, and I've been going to my Pleasant Hill Park, Recreation Park file, and I can't find that, but I can say this, that everybody is looking at this November election being one of our highest turnout elections in memory, just because of the stakes on the national level. Now, the challenge will be, there'll be a lot of people that probably vote in that election, but won't vote all the way down the ballot, and our measure will be among either in the close to the end. So that's always a challenge, but it's I will get you the number as soon as I can, and probably if I can get it tonight, I'll get it tonight, but if not, but it's significantly higher. It's thousands higher. And somehow I want to say like there's 15 to 17,000 likely in August, and perhaps double that in November. That's just off the top of my head.
But Larry, let me confirm with you that your strategy in the August election wasn't to target likely voters, but to target voters who would support us in November, but wouldn't vote in the special election.
We're not likely to vote. That's
Yeah,
correct.
correct.
The target that we would work is basically the same target. I mean, so that's in a district like yours, where you have gotten significant support from the electorate in the past, we can be pretty much assured that those people who have voted yes in the past will vote yes again. And where they will get their information primarily is from the voter handbook, from the ballot statement, and those things, but they'll make a decision on their own. There's a group of people, though, that either will vote and won't vote all the way down the ballot in November, or people who wouldn't vote in August, who we would like to vote, that need more handholding, more work. But it's the same strategy, and that's where resources of volunteers and people need to be spent on them. I mean, I think we have a strategy to win at either time, but I do believe there is I agree with Michelle. There are some potential downsides about August that are real. But I've always been concerned about fundraising from the very beginning, and Michelle knows that, about whether and I noticed, Michelle, you have an ethics meeting on Monday, so I know you're very much Thursday, is it? So I know you're very cautious about those, as well as you should be. But we're going to have to develop a plan outside of the official work here to reach out to people to do fundraising. And I have no sense at this point in time on how successful we might be.
Director Lewis.
Just a quick question. Do you happen to know, Larry, what maybe a campaign would need to have in terms of its, you know?
Derek, we really need to stop the line of communication. So we can't have a conversation about a campaign. So
I know.
I understand that is a concern, and it's a concern shared by all of the board members, but it's not something this board can control. So
Well, part of it was timing too.
Yeah.
You know, we're looking, to go early, for a variety of reasons. We showcase the district during these months coming up. We've got to carry that momentum, through to November, and we were all committed, so.
and I think everyone is.
Okay, Director Bernard.
Would you agree it would be helpful if we had some sidebar ways to communicate these sorts of things?
Yeah.
So we don't end up.
Yes, so people can communicate them directly with me, and we can have that conversation,
Okay.
but, I just really, it is my job as your staff to make sure that we don't get into any FPPC violations, and especially in a recorded meeting.
There doesn't seem to be much communication amongst all of us
Right, yeah.
about it, so
Right. Mhm.
that was in
Yeah.
part my question too, would you agree with?
Yes, I would.
No more questions at this point. I'm gonna open it up for public comment. Do we have
Yeah, we
any?
don't have any public comment on this
So
side.
open it, we'll close public comment and we'll bring it up to the board for any other comments and Michelle, help me out here a little bit on if we're discussing this.
Yeah.
And it's whether,
Yeah, I need staff direction on whether to go, whether you want to go in August or November.
okay,
So
that's the first thing.
That's it.
That's
That's pretty
it.
much it.
Okay,
And, you know, if you want to go in August, then we'll come back with the other items and you could have discussion about that.
okay,
But that's pretty much Director Glover is correct. That's the question.
okay. So that's the question. So once we decide that, then future, we would confirm our agreement of the tax rate.
Yeah, all of that will come back in resolution.
Okay. Any comments?
Can I ask one clarifying?
Sure.
First though.
No, I think, it's, I get into this sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Vice Chair Tran.
I just wanted to ask one clarifying question. I know that the question is sort of when. I just want to make sure the tax analysis was insensitive to the date. That's why we can separate it out, right? Or is there a sensitivity to it that the different voters in August and November might have chosen a different?
No, I believe if I remember the polling, the tax rate was consistent among the two different subsets of voters. It was just the number of voters that would come out. And so, and the likely voters that you had in August versus the likely voters in November. And we will have more likely voters who will support us in November than August.
Okay, sorry.
No, that was my
That was a
fault.
good-
I
That was a
you
good
lost.
question, thank you. Okay, Director Glover.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm struggling with this, because I just want to make it clear, because there were a couple comments that came earlier that I want to make it clear. I hope everybody understands this. I believe 100% that we have done the work, that we are ready to go, and that this would be successful in August. Unequivocally. I want to make that point. So that's where I'm struggling with this, because I understand, I appreciate all the arguments and I don't think you can overlook them. I think it is substantial. The cost is more than anticipated. I would say that. I do think if we went back and looked at what we paid for Measure E, it may not be apples to apples on inflation, but I do believe it was much more than a general election was at that time. So to me, and the amount of money that would be raised versus the amount of money we raised in 2009 with Measure E is much more substantial. So I think that in my mind, in that argument, it's similar to what we did with Measure E. That being said, and that's why I wanted to hear from Larry, is the impact that it would potentially have on any negative stuff coming during the campaign, which, for the most part, I think we can all anticipate, a lot of positivity about what the work that we as a district have done, the work that remains to be done, and the need that the help, the assistance we need from the community to make that a reality. And I wouldn't want anything to get in the middle of that and create noise that is unwarranted. But I'm struggling with the conversation here tonight. I know that's not the intent, but unequivocally, we are ready to go. And this would be successful. It's just a matter of not if we want to expend the rest of the resources that it's going to cost to get to that. And so that's where I'm on the fence here. I see both sides of it. I'd be real curious to get, others' opinion, and if you want to have a debate on whether or not we're ready or not, I'm happy to have that too, but that would be my comments right now. Thank you.
Director Bernardo.
Yeah, just one direct question. We don't have the numbers yet on what these projects will cost. So to me, that's a missing hole about whether we're ready. Is that something that you think is easily done, and so therefore it doesn't impact the readiness?
I think, let me see how to answer this question. cause I understand 100% what you're saying.
Mhm.
To me, we've always had a need. And even with Measure A, with Measure E, the need, what we went for on the ballot was never gonna meet the total need. So to me, it was more of, look, we've got this need. What's the possibility of helping, having community aid in our ability to meet those, those goals? And if it's not the whole, what is it? And so that's when you get into the polling and the other stuff. And so when they come forward and say, hey, at X amount of this, we believe the community would support this at the necessary amount of votes. To me, that's what we're looking at. We know what is cost out here. We'll figure out, like how to meet. I mean, we've got, I think Larry.
Like shoehorn as many of those projects into the whatever dollars
I
the
think, yeah,
the community will support.
I think Larry and his team and our team have done a fantastic job in coming up with this 5 bullet points for what the public wants and what we've heard that they want. And then some of the projects that fit those goals. I think that then we have that conversation about how to make that fit within, what we feel the community will support.
Thank you, good answer. Thank you, that helped.
Any other comments? Vice Chair Tran.
We ask you more questions too. So I agree with you. I think I made a comment at a prior meeting that we're gonna just go all in, right? The thing though, I think that's different with today, and I don't think we anticipate it, and I think that's where my hesitation is. Because in my mind, I was trying to anticipate what are all the negatives, and I'm just thinking about the measure, right? We're saying what's the budget about this. So we were working our way toward making things easier to talk about, easy to read, easy to defend. This though, we didn't anticipate this, right? We wouldn't really talk about what if the election costs too much? And we now have an example of somebody going recently about an election costing too much, and it sank. And this is a lot of money, even if judged by inflation, right? People see 6 figures, no matter what it is, they're gonna question it. And I saw Larry say every no vote is 2 yes votes, right? And so I'm wondering somewhat, and because we didn't really talk about or anticipate it, whether enough people will now vote no because there's something that the opposition can actually latch onto. They couldn't latch onto the budget, they couldn't latch on. We anticipate everything but this. And I can't picture in my mind sort of saying, well, if you allow us to spend 250,000, we'll get you 71 million, whatever it is, to do these type of things. I think that's going to be a hard hill to climb, and we just didn't anticipate that. And so I don't know if I don't know if do you still feel we're ready in August, where we didn't have sort of that work done ahead of time to sort of counteract the 2 naysayers, 3 naysayers, or whoever may be out there, to really be ready in August.
Yeah, can I?
Yeah, no, I know.
I think it's very, I think you need to understand what I'm saying. I think we are ready to go forward with a campaign. There are gonna be, this is something that could come up, it could not come up. I don't know what the situation was in San Ramon Valley. I have no numbers. I don't know what they went for, what they spent, what they've done in previous elections, the support they have from the voters, the credibility they have with their voters, the good stewards of the community money that they have been in the past. I don't know any of that. But if you're asking me, I mean, there could be, anything could come up. Something could come up in 2 months, 2 weeks, 5 months. We just don't know. We'll have to adapt. And if you're asking me, if we have done the work to be ready and earn the respect and the support from our community to go forward, 100%, unequivocally. Do I think that these are valid concerns? Absolutely. It should be taken into consideration. But my comment is that we are ready to go. Absent any other factors, we're ready to go.
Director Bonanno.
I read the report and thought about it this week. And it wasn't until this conversation that I'm beginning to think about what the value of the investment of $250,000 is for. And if the value of the investment is like a third of a bathroom nowadays at Roger Smith Park, if the value of the investment is about what the carpeting at the community center cost, I think we have to, find a way to have some comfort level with that even if that there's a ratio there that as long as we have a comfort level that we can explain it, that this is an investment and why it's important to do it now and invest that money in order to get the result that we're looking for, then I could support going in August. I take you completely honestly as that we're ready to roll. And there's lots of good reasons, I think, to do it that way. The cost is a legitimate concern, but I have to also balance it against, what it is we're trying to achieve and take in versus what it would cost us to put it on the ballot at a time that, we are ready to go to the voters and get the result that we're looking for. So I guess I'm kind of on a fence too, but I could support going in August.
I was all in for August, at our planning session, and because we were talking initially about November. And then August came up and to me, that was the way to go. I hear what you're saying. I think we are ready. I am concerned about what that number, and we don't know the actual number that it would be, but it's gonna be close to that. It's gonna be close to $250,000. It's difficult to kind of come to a decision about, okay, well, if that's something, somebody says, well, I thought you were gonna go in August, but, and we've got this information in here, so it's all public information that, we're looking at an potential election cost of about $250,000. What would that do to a write-in or a mail-in ballot in August versus November? I'm not sure what it would do. This is a difficult one.
Well, I'm looking at the 2/3 of a smaller group of people that can be targeted, and we know we've had success with it, versus 2/3 of twice that number of people that may come at this an entirely different way on a ballot where you have to go to page 12 in order to find the measure. I think there's a lot of risk going that way just to save the money. Well, and the reputational piece of it. So that's part of what I'm trying to weigh here as well.
And you're right, and Larry said this, and we had this discussion before the comments, that November, I call it messy. It's gonna be a messy election, and who knows where that initiative, our measure will be, and it will be towards the end. So do we bite the bullet and go for it? Or do we say, no, we need to be prudent and decide on taking it to November? Secretary Wurst.
I just think it's kind of sort of an ironic observation about, here we are talking about the cost to, go for this in a special election in August of $250K. And we're asking for essentially that, plus another $71.7 million off of an 18 assessed value, 18, per foot, per 100. But my point is that I think that, we haven't communicated a value to the public enough about what we're asking them to commit in terms of, a potential bond measure, not to the level of $250K. I can't see that we would want to spend that much money up front unless we knew that the public was committed to making this happen. I don't know that we've necessarily had that type of, community engagement as of yet, so I'm reluctant to go forward, but I hear that we would also, stand to have a lot more outreach and a lot more uncertainty, with the other noise that's gonna be happening within the general election. And we have to elevate above the rest of that to be able to have a greater chance of success. And I know we can't hang our hat on ACA 1A or whatever it is passing, but there's another wrinkle in that we would potentially have, a success at 55%. So with that in mind, I kind of figure that November would give us better strategy at least to hit this once and not have to try again in March.
And one clarification, because I've heard two numbers tonight. I've heard 50 plus 1, I've heard 55. It's 55.
It's 55, yeah,
55.
I didn't get a chance to correct Larry,
Okay.
it's 55%.
Okay,
Yeah.
wanted to confirm that. That's okay. Okay, Vice Chair Tran.
Yeah, wanted to respond to what Director Phenomenal had said about 250,000 sort of being relative to what, we're doing now with current projects and what the money is. And I think we just need to be mindful of the macro environment that we're in. The Fed itself hasn't convinced the public that inflation is fine. People still feel it, and people haven't adjusted, right? People haven't adjusted to groceries costing more, gas costing, they know it is, but the lag is not there yet. And that, okay, everything costs more, that's just normal price now. And to say that we can do that on a micro level with our district, when it hasn't been accomplished on a macro level, I think it's a tall tale. People are gonna see $250,000. And even if adjusted for inflation, it's about the same, that's $250,000. And I don't think we have a good answer for that yet. To say that, well, everything has gone up, I don't think it's a very strong answer. I think people are gonna say, that's a lot of money, you could be doing something with that. And so I don't know if we can develop that story between now and August. But I think we can gear up for November. If Larry's saying that our numbers are still looking good in November, then it's still looking good in November. Even though I also committed to August, I think one of the first things I said was, I like November actually a little better because the type of people that will come out to vote, it's a much more diverse population. We know that the city of Pleasant Hill has started to cross into a different threshold, right? Within the next decade, it's going to be a majority minority city. And this is just the start of that already as it is. The API community is almost up to 20% of the population now. And so I always had the concern that we were targeting like a very narrow population, even though that was a good population to do in August. I had worried that when you target something, you promise something, and you potentially exclude people. That won't happen in November though, because now we're going to be forced to reach out to a lot more people. I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? We want people to be involved. We want people to be or feel like they own or be a part of the park. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It might be a tougher hill to climb. It's going to be a wild November, but I think everybody knows that already as it is. But I think it's probably the better choice. I just don't think we have a good story to explain away $250,000. It's just not good enough yet, not developed. But I do agree that if it wasn't 250,000, 75, maybe even 100,000, I would be on board for August. But that's too high, I think.
Okay, unless we have any other comments that we haven't heard before.
I'll just as a comment to Michelle. No, I apologize. I want to move ahead to the campaign because I'm there. And that's kind of, my mindset is similar to Director Glover's in that regard. So I'm ready to go on this. So That's why I wanna try and facilitate that process, you know, but let's,
Okay.
but, you know, I didn't mean to jump forward in that way, so, but I think that's where we need to be.
The recommendation is that the board choose the November election to place a general obligation bond for consideration by the voters instead of the August election. At this point, I will entertain a motion for that. And if not, then I don't know if we want to defer this further. Do you want to have further discussion?
No, I'll motion that, we defer, you know, to the November general election.
To place the general obligation bond,
Yes, for the November general election.
okay. Okay, where's the motion?
One more time.
I motion that we defer to seek the general obligation bond for the November general election.
Any
I need,
discussion?
well, we
before
need a
past the
second.
Second,
You need a second before you can have discussion.
is there a second to that?
Second that.
Okay. Vice Chair Tran seconds. Do we have any discussion of that motion?
I mean, I don't want to belabor it, I just, and I respect everybody's comments and I just feel in my heart of hearts that, and I don't want to soapbox this thing, cause I understand what everybody's saying, we're all gonna be on board whenever this goes. But I just feel, I'm concerned that we're missing an opportunity. We've invested a lot of resources and time to get to this point. And we're basing a decision on, from what I can understand, a lot of this might happen, you know? And I get the, and a legitimate concern about why that would be perceived another way. But I just feel that having been involved in a lot of campaigns on different issues and things come up. There's gonna be, I mean, there's a lot. And when you go into this, man, you go in like, you know, this is what we're doing, and I just, you know, I'm concerned that we're missing an opportunity to get what the community wants, and so I'm struggling with, you know, but I absolutely don't disagree with anything that's been brought up, other than the fact that we're 100% ready to go. You got a motion in a second.
Got a motion in second, Director Bernard.
I'll just piggyback on what you said, that my experience is that August is the better time for us to go. It's a better target audience. I understand, you know, the issue of reaching out to more people to have people feel included, but we want this to be successful. We're investing district resources in the future of the district. That's, for me, the bottom line of what we're doing. And like I said, I came in thinking that that was a really big number, but to me, it's I have to weigh the investment versus the potential that we have of getting the result that we want, and feeling August is a better time period, and that we can come up with explanations for it. You know, when someone gets that envelope on a single issue in their mailbox and they vote on it, because there's a parcel owner, that's just an entirely different experience than filling out a huge ballot with a bunch of other stuff on it. And your ability to support, you know, no one's excluded, everyone gets to vote. It's just that I just think that it's a better investment for us.
In all the things that are going through my head right now between and hearing everybody, which they're all valid comments. One of the things that I'm now thinking about is, okay, if we went in August, what would be the date again? Remind me.
It's August, this is the last Tuesday in August.
Okay, the last Tuesday in August.
Is that when the ballots would be due?
That's when they're due, yeah.
Okay. So our costs related to this effort would change the day of the election or right after. Meaning we would not be expending, no offense, Larry, we wouldn't be paying Larry past, say, August. We've got other cost savings.
Well, you're not paying, you have a motion and a second on the floor, so.
I know.
No, so, but really, but just so as soon as you put a resolution, as soon as you adopt a resolution, Larry no longer works as a consultant for the district.
Okay.
Clearance it.
Okay.
So if you want to go with the August election, that will be in a couple of weeks, because we need to get a resolution on. If it's going to be in November election, you don't have to put a resolution on until August. So that is the clear delineation. So and you're not going to know the costs of the election until after the election is over and the county tallies all their costs together and tells us how much it costs them to put the election on. So this is an estimate based on what they've done recently, but if costs skyrocket, it could be $400,000. It's a $9 to $12, that's their range that they're giving me. And you know, printing costs, like all of those things are on us. Whatever it costs the county, they're gonna pass 100% of those things on to us. So the $250,000 isn't a given. It is the bottom. So.
I see some potential comments here. No?
No, you got a motion in a second.
I know,
I think all this, like,
All right, so
I disagree with a lot of.
Yeah, I'm sure you-
I'm not gonna get into like that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. I'm gonna call for the vote on this particular motion. Okay? The motion is, let's repeat it again, that the board choose the November election to place the general obligation bond for consideration by the voters. Right? That's what we're voting on. Right, all in favor?
Can I get a roll call vote?
Oh, yes, I think we should do a roll.
Okay, so, Chair Donato, Director Donato.
Point of order, am I allowed to change my vote later?
No, we're doing it, no,
Am I allowed to change my vote later?
in later, you do not want me to go, yes, you can, I will allow you to change your vote.
Okay,
So,
then I'm voting no.
I have, Director Glover,
No.
okay, I have Secretary Worst,
Yes.
I have, Vice Chair Tran
Yes.
and Chair Vincent.
Oh. I'm gonna go yes.
Yes. Okay, would you like to change your vote? Director Bernard?
I would like to show solidarity in this vote. So yes.
Would you like to change your vote?
That's it.
Okay, so I got 4 yeses and 1 no. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Sorry, that got a little messy.
Well, this is one of those,
Now we go, now we,
you know, 3 of us haven't been through this, so this is something that we have to grapple through. And there's just a lot of issues in both directions. So thank you all for your comments, for your questions.
Thanks, Larry.
It was very nice. Thank you, Larry.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, moving on to item 6.2. All right. Do you want to take a couple minute break? Or are we okay? She's just gonna.
He's just gonna get some water, so.
All right.
We can
We'll
wait till he comes back and then I can.
Wait until
provide
Director
our-
Glover returns, and then we will go to 6.2, which is a discussion regarding the implementation of resident priority registration for district programs and facility rentals.
Great, thank you, Chair Vincent, members of the board. It was requested by board member Bonato that I bring before the board the issue of resident priority registration. So it is on the agenda at the request of Director Bonato. But I wanted to kind of just briefly, I have a very what I believe is a complete staff report, so I don't really want to belabor the staff report in general. But I do want to hit a couple of highlights. So the district, since its inception, as far as I can tell, has never had a resident priority registration. We have always had a non-resident fee, at least in recent memory, that we've had a non-resident fee, but we haven't had a resident priority registration, which would mean that non-residents would register for programs or have access to facility rentals after residents. This is something that I've known since I've been here, so I'm going on year 7, and it's something that's been on my tickler of things that we needed to address. Pre-COVID, we really weren't running into, other than the bocce program and maybe preschool and a couple of others, smaller programs, we really didn't have a space capacity issue. Once COVID hit and everything kind of went down, the district continued to provide programs. We seem to get much more popular. We seem to get much more popular not only with our own residents, but also with residents in surrounding communities, because the district came back from COVID a lot quicker and a lot more robustly than some of our neighbors. And so, being popular is a good problem to have. I will say that being popular is a great problem to have. So I have been, this has been on my tickler for a while. It kind of came to a head for me. I got a number of comments from board members as well as the public around resident priority registration at our camp and swim fair. So there was a lot of questions, and a number of comments that I received personally from people that, how come, I don't get priority as a resident because I pay taxes here in addition to the fees that I'm paying. It is an industry standard, I would say, to offer a resident priority registration. Not everybody does it. I included in the report those around us that do it. So you can kind of see, that serving the residents is really our charge as a district. So the residents are the ones that formulated the district, are the ones that elect all of you as their elected officials. They pay taxes into the district that helps subsidize our operating budget by a tune of 50%. They also are the ones that are paying Measure E. The Measure E bonds off, and so they are currently doing that as well. So, so there is a tax burden to supporting the district that is on residents, that is not on non-residents. And the 20% fee or whatever fee it is that we charge doesn't make that up. It's not an apples for apples comparison. And so, we couldn't, if I charged enough to make that up, then non-residents probably wouldn't want to be in our programs because I'd have to double or sometimes triple that fee. And so that's not really what we want to do. We want to offer the opportunities when we can, for, if we have space available. And so at your April 11th meeting, we had a number of people, both residents and non-residents, come and talk about the bocce registration process and how staff had moved that registration procedure from returning team priority registration to everybody registers at the same time. At that time, staff was attempting to identify or to fix an issue where we had long wait lists, particularly in bocce, but the change went for all of our adult sports programs. But they were trying to address comments, concerns about the fact that bocce had X amount of spaces, all the priority teams from the previous season could register, and then basically when someone decided not to play, then a space opened up. So at that point in time, I received all of that feedback. At the time, the board asked me to consider that feedback and to make a recommendation on how to move forward. So at the time, having some form of priority registration seemed to be something that was highly sought after by the bocce residents. And I had, before the meeting, looked at the teams that we had. We had 60 teams. And almost 2/3 of them, had what we considered a resident team, but we had a number of teams that had no residents on them. And so I looked with staff, we had conversations, and I'm like, okay, well, this is a good opportunity for me to serve our residents. Looking at our wait lists, we had 17 residents on our wait list from the previous season. So I went ahead and moved forward with that. At the time, I felt that, and I still do feel that 50% is really the minimum. But I received some feedback from current teams, looking at kind of the roster size of bocce. I then temporarily reduced that down to 33%. Basically, that got pretty much everybody in the resident priority registration, except for some of those teams that had no residents at all, or had 2 residents and 12 people on their roster. So I made those changes, communicated with the bocce folks specifically, and then I received some feedback after the first email that I sent out. I received more feedback after the second one. Most of it very positive. Actually, all of it very positive. I think people grumble and don't send me an email, but I did include all the emails that I received in response to the emails that I sent out. And I did send those to the managers because that is who we correspond with when it comes to the teams. And so, I feel that resident priority registration is the wave of the future. For us, we have limited resources. It's our charge to not only serve our residents first, that we should move in that direction. But as well as in order to meet the ability to serve all of our residents, new residents who may not be familiar with our process, that we should have some sort of priority registration for residents. You see that on the, if you look at just the spring summer camp and lesson programs with waitlists. So these are just the programs with waitlists. So those that don't have waitlists, I didn't include. There's 1,800. So there's 45% of those who were serving are non-residents, and there's 1,800 non-residents on the wait list, or 1,800 non-residents, and there's 1,700 residents on that wait list. Now, when they got on that wait list, it's not an apples for apples comparison, but I do want to show that that there is a demand by residents in order to be able to provide these programs. So tonight, I would like input from the board as to how you would like me to move forward. If you do not want me to move forward with implementation of resident priority registration for all services, then I would like you to make sure that you clearly defined what your objectives, the values and the goals are for staff to be able to implement the registration procedures. So with that, I'll take any questions.
First, we'll do questions, then we do have a public comment. So we'll do questions first, public comment, and then back for other comments. So do any of the board members have any questions of Michelle? Vice Chair Tran.
I had a question. So you do reference our DEIB strategic plan as well as our yes,
Play for all.
Play for all policy. Yeah, I was looking for the word. But this suggestion focuses mainly on residents as it pertains to a financial obligation in a way to they pay. Therefore, we should at least have some priority associated with that. But our DEIB strategic plan and the policy really references uplifting disadvantaged communities so that they can have access to these services, which is a different concept. But staff use that rationale to change the policy or change the procedures based on the interpretation of our DEI policy. So I wanted to understand a little bit more how that could sort of all fit in.
So
decision.
Yeah, so I'd be glad to provide that information. So specifically with bocce, I'm just going to use bocce. So specifically with bocce, the way that our registration procedures were, teams that had played previously had first right of refusal, right? So new residents who, as you know, are most likely or typically maybe in a maybe more diverse, may want to it is true, we are changing. And so so being able to offer that up to residents first is my interpretation of implementing equitable and inclusive access to facilities and programs for all members of our community being residents. And so that is, and that is one of the things we did look at. It is an equity and inclusion issue for newer residents who may not understand the process. They may not be able to, they didn't have access to it because, we had the current teams had first right refusal, including teams that were all non-residents.
Question.
So a follow-up question related to what you just stated and what I had previously sort of asked in the strategic plan about data gathering. What disadvantaged community on the resident list were not being served that we now need to serve with the new resident first policy?
Well, we don't know because we don't collect demographic data with our on my wait list. So I don't ask people, or we haven't asked people in the past what their demographic data is to be on the wait list or in our product. So I don't know. I could suppose and guess based on names, but that isn't accurate, as we all know. But just in the fact that newer residents to our community are different than the residents who have been here for a while, or have been historically here, that would tell me that, hey, we may have a diversity and inclusion issue. And so, but it came through with bocce, but I've had the same conversation with day camps and everything else. And so, as well as facility rentals, we get this question all the time. How come I have to be in the same lottery as a resident? I pay Measure E taxes as non-residents. And so we do a lottery on that day. And, so this has been something that staff has been talking about and thinking about for quite some time. It just ended up being implemented, trying to solve the solution or trying to solve the issue that the bocce folks were having. In addition to changing the registration procedure so that I could serve residents first, we also added 16 spots. So everyone who wanted to play can play. We still have 13 spots available. So So there is enough spots. I still have 13 spots available. So,
Any other questions? I'll open this up for public comment. Public comment is limited to 5 minutes. We've had Rupert Pereira. Thank you, Rupert, for being here.
Yes, I am here. I hope I get a little better treatment than last time. And which I am not happy. And if I am closer to the limit, please give me a warning. And it's not the problem. They have to just cut me off like that. It's very rude. And so I don't have to tolerate. I need to pass this information to everybody. It's unfortunate that the board here didn't realize that this is not the first time this issue came up with the board. And I will remind you, this happened about over 20 years ago. There was Miss Margaret Ziegler, a Pleasant Hill resident, requested a 2-day resident prior to preschool registration because according to Iran, she didn't want to stay in the line early in the morning, so she wanted that one. Pleasant Hill Rec Center Board, after public hearing, decided not to implement the priority registration policy for any of the programs. They made a decision because that could harm the programs more than the benefit. If you want, I can elaborate every reason that went on. I have discussions with Bob Berger and everybody. And when I saw this Michelle's memo, I realized that she's implementing her own residential program. And in my opinion, she has overstepped her authority by overruling a prior board policy decision, which I do not consider lightly. And I don't know, she'd always talk about industry standard. Who said these industry standard? I'm a physicist, I like these words standard. Standard means if you have a bureau of standards, look at these things. Standard is around here, what's her standard? What you like the priority? Your prejudice, that becomes the standard. And that's what exactly I read her memo. And then she decided this sampling, what we call, I learned this in my MBA, they call you select a bias sample. You look at what you want, you have an idea, you select the sample and you come up with the results. You put these things into the program and come up with that. I am suggesting you use an unbiased sample. What is the unbiased sample? Who are your neighbors? Pleasant Hill, 4 cities, Lafayette, Walnut Creek, Concord, and Martinez. Why I suggest that is, when we were here, when I was a resident of Pleasant Hill, I used Pleasant Hill, Lafayette programs. I went to Concord, my kids played Martinez, Concord soccer leagues, everything. Everybody goes over there. So those are the ones. Since we just check whether how they treat the Pleasant Hill residents when they come to the programs. Just do that. And what I'm asking is, do the same thing to your neighbors, not alienate them. And Lafayette, no additional, Lafayette, Walnut Creek, no additional fees, no discrimination. You are first in line, you are in. Concord, charge non-resident fee like here. If you are first in line, you're there, no discrimination. Here, and Martinez, it's a misleading thing in her memo, which is you charge a non-resident fee. Resident priority is a very complicated thing. No priority for most of the programs. Park registration is 7 days for everybody. There's like, you can't make a reservation unless it is 7 days in advance, because I think they have to prepare. Softball is a complicated league rules. And that's because, one of the things with that Martinez is, they have better facilities. And how many Pleasant Hill people play in the Martinez Bocce? We play Bocce for about 30, 40 years. There's a majority of crowd, they play in Bocce, in Martinez, and play here. That's because the fields are better. It's going to be
1 minute.
1 minute. Okay, summary. I'm requesting board not to change this old policy, which is the proposed residential priority program.
And I'm requesting your mission of the rec center is not to divide the communities, but to unite them. You charging this, what happened if Martinez charges you, Pleasant Hill residents only? Where it's going to be? Because it's the Pleasant Hill is the only one who charging Martinez resident. They're the only ones who are charging me. So I'm requesting you to treat your neighbors the way they treat you. So that's what I'm thinking. I hope you will make a decision based on that and don't change the old policy that was implemented for so many years. And rec center, I'm proud to say rec center celebrated the 70 years. Make sure that you have the 70 years to celebrate.
Thank you, Rupert, for your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rupert. Okay, do we have any other public comment?
No, I didn't receive any other public comment on this. I don't.
Close public comment and bring it back to the board for any other comments. Director Bernardo.
Well, since I'm the one that asked this to be agendized, I guess I should let you know what's on my mind. This resident priority thing has been a mess from the beginning. It's been poorly administered. We've offended some really good benefactors. It was surprising to me that this was even in the works because it had never even been brought to the board as far as I know. And so I think there was a true disconnect between what staff felt that it was within its charge to do and what is in the purview of the board to do. Unfortunately, this came up because of the controversy, and that's how it came to our attention. But the problem only snowballed with Bocce and trying to accommodate this by coming up with tiers and other sorts of ways to accommodate the concern. And while I really appreciate the general manager using the word "I" in taking responsibility for the problems, I think that's certainly what I would have expected. I think people were really shocked at a very open statement that was made at a board meeting, which said, the board doesn't have anything to do with this. This is only in the purview of the general manager. That was number one. In that same meeting, that got my antenna up. In the same meeting, it was explained that the basis for it was the board's DEI policy. The DEI policy refers to community members, but those community members are people who use our properties and our programs. They're not residents. If we had wanted to say residents, we would have put residents into those statements, but we didn't. We put community members because we don't want to discriminate against anyone who uses our facilities or participates in our programs on any of the bases that we've been talking about. That's the DEI program. And so I think staff made a mistake in looking at the DEI program and using it to implement an entirely new registration process without any word to the board. And it came to the board's attention when it became very controversial and then became, I think, difficult for all of us to be in a room where the public is being told we don't have anything to say about it. That was shocking. It was actually shocking. So I'm not opposed to a resident priority program. It makes a lot of sense to me, especially for our impacted programs. It's how it's implemented that I think that we as a board need to be responsible for. And I think we need a lot more data, a lot more explanation from staff about how this would work, how it would be communicated, how we would deal with people that like Bocce. And I realize you did the thing you should have done, which was to expand, the opportunities to play, and that solved the problem. But that if there are other impacted programs, how are we going to tell people that have been, loyal to us and used our programs for a long time that they no longer can play or participate or use our facilities? How are we going to communicate that in a way that doesn't offend our neighboring community members, if you want to think of it that way, or people that have been loyal to us for a long time? Maybe we don't believe they're loyal, and maybe the surcharge that a non-resident pays doesn't justify it. That's really not the point. The point is they believe they've made a contribution to our district, and that the decisions that were made with respect to resident priority were made in a way that created a great deal of ill will, right at a time when we don't need ill will. We don't need ill will. So my position is that we should explore this for all the reasons that staff has brought to our attention. But I would like a lot more answers about how it's going to be implemented so that we can do it fairly, not under the DEI policy, but just because we now believe that our residents in impacted programs should have first cut at it. And how are we going to do that? And I don't have that information. The next thing that struck me as being very unequal, that we've not received enough information back yet, I think, in order to really advise staff, is the problems that we have with our registration software. We've had major problems with that, and it has resulted in, I think, grievous inequities in how people are able to register, whether they're residents or non-residents. And we haven't received any kind of report or feedback from staff about how that facet of registration is going to be dovetailed with a resident priority setup so that it works and that it's fair. This difference between online registration and in-person registration creates significant inequities in lots and lots of ways. And I would like to see how staff really is proposing to deal with that particular piece of it. I have some other points to make as well, but those are my two main. Oh, I'm sorry. I think we all need to know what the impacted programs are. And for example, how are we going to deal with preschool? Rupert's brought up preschool, and it came up 20 years ago and it was discarded because preschool is sort of its own beast. So is there a way that staff can propose that we can draw a distinction between a child who enters at a year and a half and is going to be permitted, to go all the way to 5 in the preschool program? Is there a way we can justify that in a totally impacted program where residents might not be able to get in a year 3 or year 4? Is there a way that we can justify that? I think we have to work very hard to find a way to do that, because these are little kids we're talking about, families we're talking about. And I don't know how that works. Seeing that there are 1,700 people on waiting lists doesn't really tell me what programs that they're trying to get into. And so I would like more information about how these programs really splay out when you talk about, we're talking about 50 different programs. We're talking about 100 different programs, or about 10 different programs, and what are they, so that we can figure out and give guidance to staff about how we, the board, believe this ought to be implemented. Because we've got communications issues, we've got Spotlight coming up that is advertising, or at least in the past has advertised registration potential that we haven't carried through on. That's not good. So we have to look at our publications, our website, and make sure that if we're going to do this, that all sinks in as well. So is the plan coordinated and ready yet to come all together? I don't know the answer. And so those are things that while I support resident priority, it's all going to be in the implementation of it. So thanks, Michelle, for taking the onus on it. And you use the I word a lot, and I really appreciate that. But the reality is it bounced on all of us because we're responsible for you. Yeah. Any other comments? Secretary Welch.
Yeah, I think as Michelle had said initially, it's a business being popular. It's maybe a good problem to have, and a number of people are interested in, getting access to the district's programs. And even though they live here, they can't seem to, get off of a wait list because we've given priority to those that have been here for a long time. They don't live in the district, but, that just since they've been, for us for a number of years, we're giving them priority. Where we can't even offer the residents who live here to get, in on some of the, enjoy the facilities that we provide. For me, it was pretty simple, this is not necessarily like innovative, and so many other places are already doing this for priority for their residents. So I didn't see much need, for this level of scrutiny, I guess you could say, on what I felt was fairly implemented.
Thank you. Any other comments?
You want to say that? I feel like you want to say.
I'm still recovering.
Vice Chair Tran.
Okay, I remember everything I wanted to say. I think a lot of comments that Director Bonanno said, I think I agree with. I don't necessarily disagree with the resident first priority. I think that's reasonable in a sense. They pay for half of our budget, so having some sort of program, I think, is not unreasonable. I don't know if the rollout felt good though. It was, I think, not well done. I think I've made it in every chance I've gotten that there is a role for the board. Yes, we talk about policy, but we're also the face to the community as well too. And so things bubble up to the point where we're getting information because you got emails, but we got the CCs. And so I think it's fair to look at that and say, well, how is this being implemented to the point that we now have to be involved as well too? So I think there could have been a better way to talk about and implement that. So that's perfect. So I don't disagree with the resident first policy. I think there's probably some work that needs to be done to roll it out fairly. Second thing is, I do have concerns about using the DEI strategic plan or the policy for sort of a blanket rationale for changing these things. I think they're created for very specific reasons, and I agree with Director Bonanno said as well. I think I had a hand in both. I'm mistaken both the policy and the strategic plan. We define equity and inclusion very specifically, and it was purposefully done that way, mainly to really uplift those communities that did not have opportunities to do so, or is in some historical context, right? And so I can see that argument that you make for, say, preschool, because that can impact a larger proportion of those families that really need it, because that's where the bigger minority groups are, right? It's the families that are coming in. And I see that, because I was one of the parents that stood online at 3 a.m. to get a spot in the preschool program for Jen, right? I remember for my daughter, and I remember thinking that, well, not everybody can stand up here at 3 a.m. in the morning, and everybody in line were like of different ethnicities. So I can see that argument, but I think there's a missing component when we start to use the strategic plan or the policy, and that's why I emphasize it so much and say we needed the data to make good decisions, and we don't have that data. And so to sort of implement something without data saying, oh, well, the residents could be, for Bocce, could be more diverse, but not knowing that. Then the question was asking, what disadvantaged community? Is it a disabled community? Is it a minority community? Is it a community of 20-year-olds that love to play bocce, they can't play bocce? We don't know, right? So we don't know what the disadvantaged community that we need to potentially uplift, right? And so to me, making that kind of decision, which is a big decision without data, really just making it blind, and you're not helping anybody, right? It's not in the spirit of the plan and the policy. And so I wish we had more data to be more informative before we roll something out in the name of DEI. And so I don't know if there's been action item today, it's just a discussion or.
Discussion item.
Discussion,
But we do need to give Michelle
some direction.
some direction.
So I think that's probably what I'm trying to get at is that before these types of steps, I think. Rolling out a policy like a resident first policy needs to, I think, be thought through and brought in a way that. I think several of us have said that's respectful to the, the people that have been using it and been part of this community already. But I think we need to be respectful. At the same time, there's going to be compromises that, if it's an impacted program, it's an impacted program, no matter how much respect we give to those who have been playing here for 70 years or whatever it may be. If it's popular, we need to sort of think through those issues because creating ill will, I think, it doesn't get us anywhere, really, right? So really, I think when you roll this out, if I had to give some direction, is how do we continue to keep our good relationships with people who use the park and then expand the opportunities to really uplift those communities, to give them more choices, right? So when you revamp the preschool thing, getting rid of the 3 a.m. lineup, I think expanded the opportunities for people to register, right? It was a better way to do things, I think. And then also, if we can collect data, then I think staff will have a better foundation to make these decisions on, rather than just sort of in the name of DEI, you actually have data says, these are the disadvantaged communities. How do we help them? And then the decision made because of the data, I think will be better informed as well too. And so I think those are probably two things I would suggest if you want to move forward with this.
Secretary Wurst.
Just a question. I mean, this hadn't, been the first league impacted because it's already been rolled out. So I just want to clarify, it's not as if, this hasn't already been implemented. It's just that bocce is the latest, of the leagues to have been switched over to this new type of registration. Because I heard about this from adult softball. They had some concerns about, lasting teams that weren't able to get in because they shifted the registration. So I just want to clarify that, it's not as if bocce is, the only program. It's been already implemented on others, and it was just, bocce's registration time to do it, so.
Yeah, it's, I don't call it the tip of the iceberg, but it.
So I just want to clarify, it wasn't like this is, like we aren't, talking about, changing something because it's already had been implemented. So we'd almost have to undo what's been done for other leagues too, right? I mean.
Did you have another comment?
Yeah, and the comment I wanted to make was that there's been something very custom for bocce because of the way it evolved, and in the effort to minimize the ill will. Right. As Jerry
Is bocce the only one that had?
Bocce's the only one that I'm aware of that has these tiers, these 4 tiers of, if you fit within this tier, then you get to register on this day and so on and so forth. So it may be in place. I'm not sure that staff would come back after having thought it through about whether, given direction from the board and support for a resident priority program, that it would do the same thing. I don't know. To me, it's not cut in concrete because it's a bit of a what is it, platypus?
Any comment, Director Button?
Yeah, I actually, when I read the staff report and I saw the goals from the diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, I actually felt they did pertain to this. I think especially to your comments earlier about the growing minority population within our community, as that community continues to grow, as it will exponentially over the coming years, creating greater access to residents de facto creates greater opportunity for all those residents, whether they're, new or old or whatever. So in that sense, I think, it could be expanded upon by, to, underserved communities providing greater, we talked about this as a group, providing more marketing to those groups to let them know that these opportunities are available because they may not even be registering they may not see bocce as an option because it's just a bunch of, people that don't look like them necessarily. So, I think that's an opportunity in itself, but I didn't discard that as a rationale for creating a resident priority system. I actually, when I read it, and I appreciate the comments because it's something to go back and look at, is I did view empowered community members and programs for all members of the community. I viewed that as residents. I can understand the interpretation being all those that utilize our facilities, and because I think we want to be inclusive and equitable in all those, but I also, just as I could make that argument, I could make the other argument. So I think that would actually be a good future discussion. This is a living, breathing document. I think we want to make sure that we get out of it what our intent was, which was to provide these opportunities to people in the community, whether those be residents or, I think that's the discussion and where we get there. That being said, I agree with everything that Sandy said. I think that, and I would say I have absolutely no problem with a resident priority program. To me, the numbers that have been presented in this, as far as the summer camps, the fact that we have one with more residents that aren't able to get in there, that is insane to me, especially when we're, asking these same people that are, can't get in to pay for the new facilities that we're creating. I think that's like a fundamental issue. I also think that hand in hand, and that goes with the ability to sign up. Point blank, the communication sucked on this one. And I bring it, and I say that in the sense that, I've been on this board for 12, 13 years. And we don't get that many emails because you all do a great job. I feel like we all do a great job. 90% of the emails I've ever gotten on this board are about bocce, and so to me, when I look back and I see that there is an email, I always think there's a learning opportunity, because I feel like at the end of the day, I appreciate you taking the ownership on this, and you got to a spot that I think works, and you've got support from people, and I appreciate that. Took a little bit to get there, but I think what would have been helpful in the future is, when that first email went out in December, that probably, you have a GM report, I think that would have been an excellent GM item to throw in there, just so if, we can bring it up, if we have a question about something. And I feel like we're, in that sense, I do agree that Michelle had the authority to go forward with this. I do believe that. I don't believe, though, I do believe that there's also that secondary component of notifying the board of a fairly dramatic change in how we operate. And I feel that could have got us to a point much easier in this process. And so I think, again, I think it's all provides an opportunity. I agree. I think that several things have been brought up today that, create the need for further discussion on this issue. And so I support that, but I do want to be clear. I have no problem with it. If we have residents that are on a waiting list, and, I think that they should receive priority. I do think the devil's in the detail on this one, as we saw, as this one evolved over time to, ensure that we ended up in the right spot.
Thank you. I'm also supportive of the resident priority. I also did not think that the Play for All Equity Inclusion policy, I thought it felt that this fell within it. I considered community to be residents. So I also want to commend Michelle for taking the bull by the horns when this came up and working with the community among some pretty vitriolic comments to come to an excellent resolution of this. And it wasn't easy, and I don't think it needed to happen this way for whatever reason. But I think everybody hopefully will learn something from this process. I think the bocce teams, all the emails that I got in response, were happy and appreciative of Michelle in particular, responding. It was, she had to do the pivots that were happening during COVID. This was a bocce COVID moment, when the pivoting had to be done so that we could get something ready to go, get the registration going, and now it looks like there's 13 spots left or something like that. Don't know the numbers yet, and we'll find that out later, I think, when we know the makeup of the teams. But I think we are at the point. I remember Director Bonato, you and I were at the signups for the expo. And your comment that day was, we need to have priority registration. This is crazy. You know, we need to have priority registration. So I think it's something that's been coming for a while, and it's been coming because we have really good programs, and it's not to exclude anybody that's not a resident of our district. It's to be able to manage the people that live in the district and who want to participate, and also bring in, you know, when we have, or if we're able to expand programs to include people that are outside our district. There's all kinds of things that will be happening, I think, certainly in the near and, you know, future coming up in the next couple of years, because we've got changing demographics in this city and in our district. So Michelle did an awesome job to me in reading this and going through it, starting back from not just reading the email trails from December, but just trying to come up with something that will work and that people understood. The part about being able to register only online, that got changed really quickly. So I knew people that I had talked to, and they said, well, I'm gonna have to go down to the offices and they'll be happy to help you, no problem whatsoever. So those kinds of things were handled, I think, equitably and quickly, so that there was no confusion really at the end of the day. Once it got to, okay, here's what we're going for this year, it's going to be this, and this for the signups for now. And I believe are all the teams that were registered before, have they all registered?
I haven't double checked, but there's space for everybody.
There's space for everybody, whether they.
We believe that, last I looked, pretty much almost everybody had registered that had teams previously.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where, you know, we spent a lot of energy on this, and I'd say Michelle, first and foremost, has spent the most energy on this to come to a good resolution. We may need to tweak some things going forward, but I also think this is within the general manager's purview. I have no doubt in my mind that it was within her purview to do this and work with staff to make this happen. And when it came to the board's attention, yes, there were some kerfuffle things that occurred that were, I think, handled pretty quickly. And so it smoothed it out. People grumbled a little bit, but everybody's ready to play coming in, starting in July or whenever they start. If we need to tweak the Play for All equity and inclusion policy, maybe we need to take a look at that in the next, term. If we need to tweak some of that to really, so that everybody's on board with what is the intent. And as far as doing the preferential registration for the other sports, I was also aware that I think baseball's done it. I think basketball's already gone through it.
Let me just clarify. So the original intent was to eliminate returning teams priority registration,
right,
where everyone would register at the same time. That happened in all of the sports, and it rolled into bocce last.
Okay.
And that is when when it was finally, so we put it off an extra season. And then when staff, reminded them that, hey, it's gonna open on this day, everyone's gonna have the same opportunity, that is when they were extremely upset. And so that is when that happened. But yeah,
Okay,
but this is the only program, the only sports program that, as Director Bernardo rightly said, has the tiered. We haven't
Right.
done that in the other ones.
right.
Yeah.
For bocce, that probably makes sense. Any other comments before we, yes, Vice Chair Tran?
Thank you. And thank you for saying all those things. I agree with a lot of that. I just wanted to clarify and just to make very clear a couple of points. So one is, I think I'm hearing from everybody that resident priority it's important, including myself. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. I think that it's been said by everybody. So that I think we're all in agreement with. I think we're all in agreement as well too that a lot of this day-to-day operations is handled by the general manager. I think that's a fair statement to make. The distinction I think that I wanted just to make very clear is that even though the general manager has the authority to make sort of day-to-day operations things, if there's a question on how policy is interpreted or used, I think that needs to come to the board. And it was brought up as a question of whether staff were interpreting it the way we intended to have it interpreted. And I agree with Director Miles that to have that sort of downplayed in some way, I think was not the correct way to do it. I think if it's for us to determine what we meant by it, it is in the domain of the board to discuss it. I think that should be a fair statement to make. I also want to make very clear that in the DEI strategic plan, as well as the policy, I don't necessarily think we need to rewrite it in any way. It's very clear that we define it in a way that it's for disadvantaged communities that have been historically deprived in the past from opportunities to access. So we wanted to make sure that equity is a part of that. That's the whole part about disadvantaged communities being able to uplift them, and inclusion, being able to tear down the barriers that historically. So when you say residents instead of all residents, it's too broad a term. And that really was because it's the financial issue, right? They pay in, therefore they should get priority. That's not a DEI component of it. The DEI component is about communities that have not had the opportunity to do so, to access us. And so I don't necessarily think we need to change it. I think it's the correct wording and the correct terminology and the correct spirit. But I just want staff to be very careful on how they interpret that wording and phrasing and trying to apply it on a much broader level. That wasn't the intent of the DEI policy in any way. It's very specific, and the wording is very specific because of that. Yeah, it says it in there, right? It's very specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's intentionally specific, right? So that's why I don't necessarily disagree with the resident, because that's a different issue. I think it's a fairness issue in terms of I pay taxes, I should get priority, right? I'm double paying. That's just a fairness issue. Equity and inclusion is a different issue. So I want to make very clear that the two separate things. And so when it was brought to our attention that was the basis in which a decision was made, rather than the basis of just fairness because somebody paid, I think that should have come to the board and saying, are you interpreting what we meant correctly? Now, if Michelle just came to us and said, I just want to make sure it's fair because that's what the residents are paying. Well, fine, do what you need to do as a general manager, but that wasn't the case, right? And that's why I think I also made a comment, maybe they should come to the board to discuss, make sure that we understand what we meant, and then also staff understood what we meant as well too. So I just want to make that very clear.
No, and I think we're not saying the same thing, but we're saying related things.
Related things.
Yes, so, thank you.
I'm not gonna debate it.
Yeah,
I think it's worth a conversation, and I don't necessarily agree with your interpretation, but I don't think we're far off. But I think it'd be a good clarification. I think the clarification would be very apropos to, like this discussion. I don't think right here is the forum to do that, but yeah. So I think, whether it's at the planning session, or in a planning session, or we don't want to wait till then, we want to do it might be good to just kind of open that up a little bit. I agree. I don't think it needs to be rewritten. I think it's just more of,
Maybe just
yeah,
clarified interpretation and spirit of what.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah.
Okay, so any other comments? This particular item is a discussion.
Yeah.
And there's really no action unless we can get a consensus. Go ahead, Michelle.
If you would allow me to,
I will.
what I have heard among the table. So, so as I mentioned, I believe that, day-to-day operations are within the purview of the general manager, but obviously the board can decide what to take from me or insert themselves in any decision at any point in time. So I just want to make sure that that is clear. I felt I was acting appropriately. I still do, but I understand and I hear at least 3 board members who would like to have this conversation about the resident priority registration. And while there's kind of a consensus that that's the direction we want to move in, you would like to be a little more involved. You would like to see what staff would recommend and then have some input into that. I heard that from at least 3 of you. So that's kind of the consensus that I'm recommending that that we go through the program committee and we can move through that. I have no problem with that. With bringing this to the program committee and we can flesh it out and then bring it to the recommendation to the full board. Because I do hear that there's a consensus, but there's a sensitivity and I do understand that. And Director Glover, you are correct. Blindsiding the board is not something that I wanted. So the point is well taken, we, in making sure that, some of these things that we include in a GM report for updates. So if the board has an antenna and says, hey, we want to talk about that, or come that back, then I think that is definitely appropriate. We've made lots of registration procedure changes over the course of the year. This is what that, entails as far as I'm concerned. But that's what I recommend. Because I have at least 3 board members who seem to want a little more information, as you should, especially when we're going to implement something that's going to affect the people that you work for. So that would be my recommendation if the board is okay with that.
Who's on the program?
Yeah, remind me, 'cause I gotta.
We and Derek.
Okay.
I support that.
Great idea.
Right.
No, I think it should have been.
In this case,
Yeah.
I don't believe we need to vote. I think we can get a consensus that that's what we want to do. So based on what Michelle has said and using the program committee as a vehicle for having that discussion, do I have a consensus for the board? Does the board agree with that? Raise your hand if you do.
With the policy of resident priority?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, absolutely.
Discuss resident
And
priority
then to discuss at the program committee,
Yeah.
how that may potentially look.
Yeah.
and bringing it back to the
Yeah.
board.
Good communication.
Okay,
Understand.
all right. Okay. I think that one was good discussion.
Rupert, thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you.
And I know that you felt cut off last time, and I want to apologize to you.
I accept your apologies and that's what I think I did. I have learned that respect around the years. I can demand that too.
Thank you.
So much.
That's what we hope to communicate.
Thank you.
You're a respected person, Rupert. All right, take care. We will move on to verbal reports from committees. Chairs. Land and Facilities will be meeting on June 3rd.
Third?
And Budget and Finance did meet on the 21st.
Yeah, just a sort of a brief the second year of the 2-year budget is looking good. We're gonna meet again to sort of flush out just some of the smaller details with that, continuing on with the tradition that Michelle brought up and making it very digestible,
Yeah.
lots of graphs, easy to sort of sort through. And so we're looking forward to getting that to look at it and approve, and we'll bring it to the full board once we're done, but happy to say that I think we're in good shape.
That's good to hear. Excellent.
Good. Thank you for your
All right.
both of you.
We do have
And
a
Michelle.
district city liaison meeting on next Tuesday, the 14th. We don't have a huge agenda, but we've got some topics that we will be discussing.
Oh, what are those?
It is, it's
Just
posted.
published, right?
Yeah, it got published, so, we are talking about, our bond timeline. And we're going to share, the conceptual designs for Chilton Tango Park, because we thought that would be interesting. And then the city's gonna talk about, their local government academy, and then they're also gonna talk about the zoning changes, for consistency on the general plan. And a timeline for that, and including our changes in there, so that is gonna be on the agenda, so. But the agenda's posted.
Is the meeting at City Hall?
It's here.
It's here.
We are hosting, it's
Are you
here.
gonna televise it?
No, it is here.
Okay. Anything else? Board announcements, item 8, board announcements and requests to staff. We will start with Director Bernard.
Well, I wrote this today because I wanted to show you what it is. This is my hat that my grandson made in preschool, because today was the second annual Mother's Day tea party in Miss Rebecca and Miss Katie's preschool room. And it was absolutely awesome. The little kids served their guests. They made necklaces, they made hats in advance, and all of this was rating for us. And then I'd also filled out little interrogatories or interview, things. It was just so very, very touching. So shout out really to for the energy and the love and the running the extra miles from those two teachers, Miss Rebecca and Miss Katie. I just feel they did a wonderful job. Let's be honest, thrilled.
Okay, Director Glover.
Yeah, just on the general manager report, I think the kudos to the aquatics staff, because I've seen other organizations handle it not so well, but the communication that's gone out about the need to get live scan and then to go beyond that and provide the opportunities, the sign up genius, it made it really seamless. And I think that's a testament to the work and the professionalism back there. So kudos to them. New principal and 2 new vice principals coming into College Park next year. So I thought, once they come in, it'd be a great opportunity to maybe, introduce them to the district and invite them here and welcome them. I think, there's some needed change there, and hopefully these 3 individuals can, create that. And so that was great. Third, I just want to say we haven't had a meeting like this in a long time. And I just want to say kudos to everybody. I thought everybody had great comments and was respectful, and it's important to note that we're not always going to agree on stuff, and that's okay. So we're all in this together, and I just appreciate all of you so much after a night like this, even as diverse as the opinions are. I think that's great. And then last, just happy Mother's Day to my in advance to my fellow board members and all the mothers within the district, and thank you for all that you do to raise the next generation and the generation after that. Thank you.
Thank you. Secretary Wurst.
Yeah, I just wanted to say some appreciations to Michelle. For last Thursday, we had the Pleasant Hill Community Foundation recognition of the Oliver Holmes recipients, and she got to speak about Ryan Harriman, the recipient this year of that award. And the way she was talking about him, you could just tell Michelle is very much invested in every one of her staff. And she knows so much about them that it just really, it came through so well in that time. I just want to express my appreciation for how, how invested you are in your staff. And then the thing I'm looking forward to is our upcoming conference. We have that towards the end of the month, so I'm looking forward to attending.
Same place we were last fall.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Vice Chair Tran.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm also looking forward to attending that. I saw that Wednesday they just sent out the agenda, and it sounds like they're still making the agenda and asking for topics as well too. It's like 2 weeks away. Yeah, anything else I want to talk about? So anyway, but it looks like there's some good topics in there to talk about and get to know more. I also went to the community foundation thing. It was a great event, so thank you for putting that on. It's always good to see the community come together with that. May is AAPI Heritage Month. We want to invite those who wish to participate in events. There aren't very many in Pleasant Hill, but there are in surrounding areas.
There's one May 20th that is happening at the Winslow Center, I believe, isn't it?
We just have a new rental on May 31st is what she's.
Oh,
looking at, I believe.
Because I thought there was a planned API fest or.
Yeah, because there wasn't anything that was in the works, so we said we need to get something else. Anyway, so hopefully there will be one, and then hopefully there will be a tradition of one moving forward, especially since that's the largest minority group or the fastest growing minority group in the area. And so being able to recognize that group, I think, will be very important to do moving forward. And I'll appreciation to all staff and then especially Michelle. I know it's been a busy month or will be a busy month, and I know you're punishing me because of that. So, but I want to thank you anyways. I know you put a lot of work into all of these things. So thank you for doing it.
Okay. Well, I had the opportunity to speak to the Rotary Club of Pleasant Hill today and basically gave the presentation similar to what we did at the mayor's breakfast, but with some Jen Thwaites tweaks. And I got to emphasize the potential bond measure coming up. It was well received. I sent Jen a note and thanked her for not only the slides, but the notes that she prepares for whoever's speaking. And Michelle was there also, so she could answer the staff related questions. But there was a lot of questions. And I think those folks are interested in seeing what kind of projects are going to be coming up in the future. So they definitely will be a group of people that we will want to inform so that they can tell other people about whatever things are coming up in the district. The Pocket Park was approved by the city on Monday night. From their standpoint, we already did our thing a couple weeks ago, and the city signed off on it. So I believe the fence is down.
Yeah.
Good. So it's already being used, I believe, by the community or the County Board of Education folks that are in the building right there. So Mike Maxwell in particular was very effusive in his comments about what a nice little park it was and all kinds of things. So he also got some pats on the back for assisting with that discussion with the superintendent. Is that what Lynn is? Yeah. So that went well. We were in Washington DC all last week, so I didn't get to go to the foundation celebration, but that's an event that I've been to many times, and it's always a worthwhile event, and lots of people go, and it's just fun to see the different groups of people, and especially that I'm glad that Ryan was able to be there and be honored. But yeah, we spent a whole week in DC and didn't have any rain until we left Saturday morning. So I'm waiting.
I'll let you know.
Nicole's
I'm going
heading that
tomorrow.
direction. Yeah. But yeah, it was great. It was great. And just, It was 15 years. We were probably there 3 times a year for 4 years straight. But hadn't been there in 15 years, so it was nice to see what was the same and nice to see what had changed. And a lot had changed, a lot was the same, but it was a lot of fun. And that's all I have, and I think that with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 9:28, and I will see you on the 16th at 6 o'clock.